Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'm Tiffany Benson, one part of Team Benson, and today we are going to be pickling some cucumbers to make some pickles. And I already have some pickles already made that I'm going to show you guys. So let's get into it. Alright guys, so I have been testing out my picklings and how long I like for things to pickle. So this one is the one I've been eating on, and as you can see, it already has like a plastic lid on it. This one has been in the refrigerator. Once you put your pickles in the refrigerator, it's going to slow down that fermentation process. Pretty much kind of puts it to a halt, so that then it just kind of really stays, the flavor kind of really stays where it's at. Over a couple of months you might notice difference in flavor, but over like the next I'd say next couple of weeks of me eating this, it's going to be the flavor that I want it to be. Now these two I have been keeping in there for an extra week. We're going to talk about what happened with one of them, because now they're going to, the longer they stay fermented, just like in on the counter or in the refrigerator or something like that, they're going to get like some scum, like a little bit of a yeasty buildup. What you don't want is like a thick layer of like mold on your food, or if you look down in here and you see that there's mold or anything like that, because then that would mean that oxygen got in here, or your brine wasn't salty enough to where it didn't separate that bacteria. So down here is where your food is nice and preserved, so you don't want to see any type of mold, any type of discoloration, or anything like that down there in your food. But you might get like a form of like yeast or something like that on the top. You can easily just scrape that off. Even if you have mold just somewhere on the top but below the water line and not touching the food, you can also scrape that off. But it's when you start seeing it growing down and doing a little thing and maybe like talking back to you, that's when you don't want that. Now I also have the onions that I did, the pickled onions, and these ones are pretty much all done too as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove the lids, show you what it looks like on the inside, because one of them has some gross craziness on it. The food's still good, but it does still have some gross craziness on it. And then I'm going to add one of these lids, which is just basically the plastic lid, and I'm going to put it in the fridge and leave it in there. Now, one of the things I like to do is I like to have a bunch of ferments going on in my refrigerator. So then at any time, we have a lot of ferments that we can eat from. Because the nice thing about having fermented vegetables and fermented foods to eat is that those are going to be adding probiotics. So all of that bacteria that's in here, all of that good bacteria, that is what the probiotics is. And that probiotics is going to do a ton of different things for your gut health. So we're going to show you those, and then we're going to make some pickles, and I can show you how I do it. So as you can see with the onions, which smell amazing, everything has remained underneath the water line but this little onion right here. Now this little onion, looks like a little bit of yeast on it, so I'm just going to scoop that out, and then I'm going to go ahead and grab the puck that's in here. So this one has turned out really, really well. As you can see, the onions look amazing. They still have some crisp to it. But I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put these down in there. And then those ones are fine for me just to put the lid on and then put those in the refrigerator. Now, one step you don't have to do, but I like to do just to make sure that I don't have anything on it, is I take just a little bit of vinegar on a paper towel and I wipe off the tops of the lids before screwing them on. So this one is now all set and ready to go into the refrigerator. Now that one had been sitting for a week. This one has been sitting for 2 weeks. So this one, not bad, has a little bit of gunkiness in there, but that is just yeast. So I'm going to, what I still like to do is anything that's floating, I still like to scoop out. Let me go grab a different spoon so I'm not cross-contaminating any flavors. Okay, so I'm just gonna go ahead and scoop out all the things that were floating. I don't see any mold or anything like that in this one, but this is just something that I like to personally do. It's not something you have to do. But like I said, I like to do it just for the things that are floating. Once I take the puck out, if anything else floats up, then that's fine. But this is just for the things that are floating right now. So now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to reach in here and I'm going to remove the puck. This puck has a little bit more yeast on it, as you can see, but once again, that's fine. Yeast we are not worried about. Now this one could probably use a little bit more brine. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to mix up some brine and for the pickles that I'm making, and then I'm going to top this one off. But in the meantime, I'm just going to wipe the lid down so I can make sure it doesn't have any food particles or anything like that on the rim and of this jar. And then I'm just going to add a cap. Now for this one. Now this one, guys, I've already opened these so I know what they look like. This one day, it was like completely swollen up and I needed to burp it. But instead of burping it just like this, which is what you would do, I burped it like that, which is what you should not do. Because that put oxygen into this little cap right here, just this little surface. So by doing that, that created that. Oh my god, it's so gross. Now that is a thick layer of like scum. Now, as you can see, there's not any of that in here because this is a an anaerobic vessel right now. So all of that gunk is not actually in this because this is the salt water. It was just on the lid. Now, some people might still really be grossed out by that. A little bit of mold, especially if it's not touching my food, doesn't really bother me because I know that there's none down in here. But, you know, it's not something that you need to throw out because if you look at the lid, as you can see, it has a little bit of yeast, but it doesn't have any mold on it. But I'm going to go ahead and take that out, and then I am definitely going to add a little bit more brine to this one too as well. And I will label it Gunky One, just in case. But I don't think that there's anything wrong with it. If you guys are grossed out by that, definitely throw it away and just start fresh. So guys, this might sound a little bit weird, but when I saw that, I was like, yes! Like, I get to make like one of those cool like thumbnails where I'm like, ah, like what happened? It's gonna be a little clickbaity, but I still think that it's like so cool that like I don't think I get like a lot of like really like shocking things that happen out in my garden just because I've finally gotten that rhythm of my garden to where I know like when I need to prune things, when I need to pull things, when I need to just say, okay, this is done, I'm putting something else in. So it's like I never really get like really horrible infestations in my garden. Well, I should probably knock on some wood. But so when I saw that, I was like, oh, this is something like really cool I get to show everybody, and I get to make one of those cool thumbnails where it's like a little dramatic. But yes, you can still eat your food as long as that mold had not gone down there, or if I had pulled up that lid and the top layer of the water had have had the mold on it, then I would have definitely just thrown the whole thing out. But since there was nothing actually touching the water, then I went ahead and just pulled the lid off, threw that into the sink to wash it, and then there was about this much of a space between the gunk and the actual water, so then I just scooped out any type of just regular yeast that forms in your ferments, and then just went ahead and cleaned up the lid, put that into the refrigerator. Now, the other thing you want to look for is any type of bad smells too as well. Like if I had opened that up and it had a horrible smell to it, then I would have definitely thrown that out because you don't want like botulism or anything like that. And one of the ways that you'll find out if you have botulism in something, which usually happens in pressure can things, I don't know if it happens in ferments, I'll have to double check, but botulism is something where it can like kill your whole family. But like, well, that's a little dramatic. but it has like a really pungent smell. And usually, like if you see a canned good that is like dented, or if a can has like a lid pop to it and then there's like mold growing down into there and it's just black and gross and moldy all inside where your food is touching, that's definitely like botulism, and you don't want that. Now, what's keeping that mold from getting anywhere near your food is the amount of salt water that you have in your brine, or the amount of salt that you have in your brine. And that's why it's so important to get your salt levels correct when you are making your brine for your food, because if it's not salty enough, then definitely things will grow in there as your food is fermenting. So I am going to let those tops soak for a little bit in some soapy vinegar water. I use a non-fragrant dish soap and a little bit of vinegar, and I'm gonna let those soak for half an hour, and then I will be back after they're all cleaned up so that I can make the pickles. All right, guys, now we are back and we are making pickles. So we're gonna turn all these cucumbers into some pickles. Now I am going to be using the recipe out of the Masontops book, and what I'm going to do, I don't follow the recipe exactly. I mainly use it for the water and knowing how much water to use and what kind of spices you can use with it. You can pretty much put anything in there that you really want, but I kind of know what I like, so I'm gonna go with what I like and kind of how much of it that I like. Now, the important things that you're going to need is that if you want to keep your cucumber or your pickles crispy, you're going to need something with tannins in it. And tannins are basically what holds that crisp into your cucumbers. Now, you can use, traditionally, you can use like grape leaves or oak leaves, but I don't have a grape tree and or an oak tree just outside of my backyard, so I have bay leaves, which bay leaves also have tannins in them. So that's what I am going to be using, are just a simple bay leaf, and I'm going to put a couple leaves in each one. Now for my flavors, I am going to use some of the garlic that I got. So I'm going to throw just whole pieces in there, and I'm making 4 jars. One will have 2 pieces of garlic, and then I'm also going to add some peppercorn. Now the ones I made last time were a little spicy with peppercorn, so I'm probably going to use a little less shakes of it than what I did last time. You can also make spicy pickles by putting red pepper flakes in them too as well. So I do that sometimes, just kind of depending on what I want. I want these to be pretty basic for the fall, just because then you can do other things with them. I'd asked on my community page, which if you guys haven't gone over there, go over there, because I made an amazing Moroccan fish stew last night with my preserved lemons that I did in a couple videos back. So if you guys want to see that, comment on there and let me know, and I will do that recipe for you guys, because I'm thinking that maybe while we're a little slow in the garden because it's 1,000,000 degrees, then I'm going to do a couple recipes with the foods that I've preserved, so that way you guys know how to use them. Now the second thing I'm going to use is coriander seeds. Coriander seeds, now these coriander seeds are a little bit special because I grew them. Basically what happens is in your garden, when you grow cilantro, when it bolts, it will give you coriander seeds when it goes to seed. And that is the nice part about cilantro bolting. That's the only nice part about cilantro bolting, because otherwise you just want to have nice cilantro, but instead it looks at the sun and it bolts because that's cilantro. So I'm going to go ahead, put all of that on the bottom, and then the last bit of my recipe is going to be, reach around here, it's going to be all of the dill that I grew. Now if you guys remember, this is the dill that I grew and I froze. Now all I did was I just let the dill thaw out and then just simply put it in here. And as you can see, when it thaws out, it's not going to be like crispy how it was when I put it in there, because of course it's been in the freezer, but you can still use it for all different types of things. So for those of you guys that wanted to know what I was going to do with that much frozen dill, I'm making pickles, amongst some other things too as well. So I'm gonna save half the dill because halfway through layering it with my cucumber disc, I'm going to put another layer of dill. So now I'm just gonna cut up all of these cucumbers and put them into the 4 containers that I have, the 4 jars. And you can see it has the garlic, the the coriander, and the black pepper, and then also the dill in there. Now I'm gonna wait until I get halfway through to put the bay, just because, I don't know, that's just what I do. So I'm gonna cut all these up and then I will be back. Okay, so now our jars are halfway full. So I'm gonna go ahead and I am going to add some bay leaves to each one of them. And then I'm also going to add the rest of the dill to each one of them. Now I put about 3 bay leaves, 2 to 3 bay leaves. Once again, it'll be something that you want to kind of check with your taste to see what it is that you like. The bay leaves really don't give off that much of a taste, but I have some pretty small bay leaves in here, so I want to make sure that I have at least enough in there to make sure that they're going to stay crispy. Now the other thing you want to do is you want to really make sure that you pack your cucumber slices in there, because you don't want there to be like a lot of air in there. So while I'm doing it, I'm also smushing them down in here to try and get them as tight as I can in there. Okay, sorry about that, my camera died. But what I was saying is you want to make sure that your veggies are really packed down in there. 1, because you don't want any air pockets, and 2, because you want to make sure that it's staying below the water line. And you can keep it staying below the water line if they're really packed in there tightly. So I'm just gonna go ahead, add the last bit of this dill to here, and then I'm going to finish chopping up all of these, and then we're gonna talk about water and salt concentrations. Okay, so now let's talk about water. Now you don't want to use regular tap water in your ferments because it has chlorine in it. If you do not have like an osmosis system or something like that, I use my Berkey, which I finally got one. I'm so excited about it. I will link it down below. It filters all of the chlorine out of the water, so then therefore it doesn't taint my brines. You can also let the water sit. If you don't have a Berkey, if you don't have a filtration system, you can let the water sit for 24 to 48 hours before you use it. But I would either get bottled water or use filtered water. Now for my recipe, I'm going to be using 4 cups of water, and for every 2 cups of water, I'm going to use a tablespoon and a half of salt. So what I do as a little trick is I put it in one of my jars, which I am spilling water everywhere and making a mess. So let's go get a towel. Swear it wouldn't be my cooking show if there wasn't a mess involved. So then also when it comes to salt, you're going to want to use a salt that is like a canning salt or a sea salt or a kosher salt. You do not want to use regular table salt because it has iodine in it, which will also kill the good bacteria. So I have 4 cups of water in there, so I am going to put a total of 3 tablespoons of salt in here. Now if you over salt, if you get a little worried with your first one and you just want to use a little extra salt to make sure that nothing bad happens to your ferments, then that is totally fine. You'll just end up with a really salty pickle. But at least nothing will happen to your ferments. So I did look it up, by the way, and yes, no, you cannot get botulism when it comes to ferments because of the salt levels that is in the brine, and the botulism can't live in there, so that's a good thing. So all you want to do is just shake it up, and I just shake it. Normally I have a clear jar so that then I can see it, but I am running out all of my clear jars because, you know, once again, it feels like there's a shortage, which if you guys are not gotten your jars yet, make sure you go to your local store and get your jars, just because, yes, they're already starting to run low because we're getting ready to hit canning season. And they were running low before, and now they're really running low. They're really running low on these little guys. These little guys are like gold. So now all I'm gonna do is I am going to pour the salt water in there and try and fill it up. I might need to make some more brine. Yep, I need to make some more brine, guys, so I will make some more brine. I'll be right back. Okay, so we have some more salt water going. Now you want to make sure that the salt is really good and dissolved in your water too as well. And that is because you want to make sure that you have that high salt level in there and that you have the right amount of concentration of salt to water in your mixture. So I'm going to fill that to about right there. Fill this one to about right there. And then I'm just going to take my little stick here. Now this one comes in my canning kit, or you can just use a butter knife. And I'm just going to poke down in here to release any type of air bubbles that might be in there. And you'll see them kind of float to the top. I already did these two. So then I'm just gonna take my puck. This one probably needs a little bit more water. I'm gonna take my puck and I'm gonna sit my puck all the way down in there, really push it down in there, okay? And I'm gonna do that for every last one of them. Now, guys, I don't soak my cucumbers. A lot of people soak their cucumbers in salt and give it like a salt soaking, and that will help to release some of the water out of the cucumbers. I find that if I just leave it in there, then yes, it might spill over a little bit, but it'll make it to where I don't need to add more brine to my mixture as it's starting to ferment. And then I'm just going to add my ferment top onto them, and make sure that you guys don't squeeze the tops of these to release air. If it needs to be burped, just burp it, just do it. Like, it shouldn't need to, but sometimes it just will create a lot of gas and you just need to. So if it does, don't be lazy like I was, because you don't want to have a big growth that talks to you when you open up your jar. So I'm just gonna go ahead, get these last two on there. And then when I put these in my cabinet, now I put these just in my pantry, and they stay at room temperature. That's what's gonna make them ferment. And then I just put them in a little basket that I have in there that I hold all my ferments. So then that way if it spills over, it doesn't make a mess in my cabinet, because that's the last thing you want is just salt water all over your pantry. So that's it. That's how I make my pickles. I'm going to let these ferment inside my cabinet or my pantry for at least 1 week. I find that I like it better when it's fermented for a week than longer. So it's gonna depend on how you like things. I always tell people after a week, because that's usually typically the time for it. So after the week, give it a taste. And then if you think it needs to be longer, then let it go longer. And then but only do it by like a day. So let it go longer by a day, taste it, go longer by a day, taste it, until you get it the way that you like it. And then you're just going to remove the lid, remove the pickling top, remove the puck, put a plastic lid on it, and then put it into the fridge and let it sit and enjoy your pickles. So I hope you guys like my recipe. Hope you try it. I will link everything down below, including the Ferment cookbook and the kit that has actually these and the pucks in there, so that you'll be able to get like one kit in order to get everything that you need. So until next time, make sure you guys are growing yourselves a garden, because even a small space can provide you with tons of food. Bye guys.